Hi class. Today we're going to be talking about the Bootstrap responsive page, which is project 7 in your books. You're going to be creating a page using a JavaScript library called Bootstrap. And so Bootstrap is built in a 12-column layout, and you can manipulate it to change based on whether you're viewing it on a smaller screen or a tablet or a desktop. So Bootstrap is built into Adobe Dreamweaver to make it a little bit easier for you to be able to create a responsive page design. Okay. We're also going to talk about CSS3 transitions. So with Bootstrap, like I said, it's already built into Dreamweaver, so it makes it really easy for you. It says, with HTML5 and CSS3, web designers now have the opportunity to create pages that are optimized for viewing on whatever device a user chooses, rather than creating multiple versions of a website. For specific types of devices, we can use responsive design to create pages that automatically adapt to suit the device's size that is used to display them. Bootstrap is an HTML and CSS-based framework that allows much faster and easier web development, including responsive page design. Bootstrap CSS classes predefine the appearance of various elements, such as typography, images, and forms, as well as a variety of interactive components like navigation menus and image carousels. You can use Bootstrap to design a page that changes its appearance and even its content to present information in the best way possible for the screen size being used. The tools built into Dreamweaver make it relatively easy to create responsive web pages using Bootstrap. However, you still need a solid foundational knowledge of CSS before you can efficiently take advantage of the available tools. You should understand how div tags work and how to create the various types of CSS selectors to control the appearance of different page elements. You should also have a good working knowledge of basic Dreamweaver tasks, such as accessing the page code of various files, in case you didn't know how to do that, in certain browsers like Google Chrome, you can actually right-click on any web page and go to View Page Source, and it's going to show you all the code for that page, as well as all the code that's linked to that page. Okay. So if you need to reference another page and see how it's built and then change it over to your page, you can do that. Just make sure you don't copy somebody else's code exactly. Make sure you're just using it as a learning tool, okay? Because people's code is actually copyrighted. So this is an example of a website that uses Bootstrap. So it's got all these boxes for headlines and stuff. You'll notice as well that there's like some animation with it. So like these ones are going to pop up and the footer pops up. So as I make my windows smaller, you'll see these little boxes getting smaller. And then eventually, right there, it's jumping to a single column layout where they're all stacking on top of each other. So this is utilizing Bootstrap to make a responsive page design. So Bootstrap 4 uses an underlying page grid, like I was saying. So if you imagine that there are 12 columns that extend over the width of the entire page, regardless of the physical display size. The columns adapt to the size necessary based on the available space in the browser window. So if you think about it, you're making your, like on a mobile view, you're making your screen smaller, but it's still divided into those 12 columns. Okay, so as you're expanding your screen size, the column widths are going to be wider, but they're going to be set as percentages. So they will scale automatically. So Bootstrap recognizes 5 different screen sizes as shown in this table right here. And you can tell it how many columns you want a certain element to span. So if you keep thinking about the 12 columns, no matter what the width of the screen is, you might have some elements that you want to expand or to span across all 12 columns. So then you would write call SM12, and you want them, if you want it to span across all 12 columns. Or if you want it to be only a percentage of the screen, then you might only want it to span 3 of those columns or 5 of those columns. And you might want it to change based on the screen size. So that's what Bootstrap helps you do, is to change based on sizes of screens. So extra small is for portrait phones, so when you're holding your phone vertically. Small is for landscape phones, so when you're holding your phone horizontally. Medium is for tablets, large is for desktops, extra large is for desktops, okay? So you might have some specific changes for the extra small viewing, and then small and medium might be the same, and then large and extra large might be the same, okay? So this is the actual pixel width, and you can, if you have an iPhone 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever, you can actually Google the actual pixel width of that screen and see what that is. But ideally, you should be designing for any screen size, okay? So when you're doing Bootstrap, you want to think about the mobile design first. The defined settings automatically apply to the extra small display layout. So when you create a new row with column elements, each column element spans all 12 columns of the underlying page grid structure. So in the extra small layout, when you're looking at your phone, you want all of the elements to take up the whole screen, or the full 12 columns. So if you look at the gray columns, those are the 12 underlying page grid columns. If you define different column span settings for the small display size, then that width setting will persist throughout the medium, large, and extra large unless you define different settings for those as well. So once you set one of your columns to only span 6 columns in whatever display size that might be, then it's going to trickle down to the rest of them. The images to the right illustrate this concept. The gray vertical bars represent the underlying page grid. The green bars show the number of columns that will be spanned in each size layout. So when you're in the extra small screen, it's going to span the whole thing. But when you get to small and beyond, it's only going to span 6 columns or half of their page. You can change the number for each column element in a row, but the total of all column spans in the same row should be less than or equal to 12. If the total is larger than 12, some columns will appear in a second row in the display. So once you start doing this chapter tutorial, it will make a lot more sense. But you don't want it to add up to more than 12, basically, okay? Also, we need to talk about media queries. Okay, a media query is a way of defining different CSS code that applies in different situations. So media queries are used in your CSS document, and you can make the styles look different based on the display size that it's being viewed upon. So if, for instance, you set all your H1 headers to 24 pixels, that's going to apply to everything. But if you want the font size to be smaller on a smaller screen, then you can use what's called a media query to set that. So you would type in your CSS document, it would say @media, min width of whatever, then your font size can be a different size. In this case, it's larger. So they're saying if this screen is 992 pixels wide or more, I want the font size to be larger. Okay. And if the font size, or if the screen is 1200 pixels more, then I want the font size to be even larger than that. So if you use those media queries, then the browser is going to look at the screen size and determine what the screen size is and follow only the rules that apply to that screen size. So this is just a basic introduction to working with Bootstrap. You're going to create two basic layouts, one for the extra small, small, and medium, and one for the large and extra large. You could do all of those separate layouts if you wanted, but chances are you might want to use the same layout for a couple of them. So you're going to use a few basic Bootstrap components and then define a few simple media queries to control the appearance of page content. Responsive design is quickly becoming the rule, not the exception, in professional web design. We highly encourage you to continue your education in responsive design. So if you figure out Bootstrap and you decide that you want to use it, you can research it a lot more online. And I think it's just called getbootstrap.com. So getbootstrap.com is a resource for you. You have examples on there. You have people who are experienced with it, and they have a community on here. So if you want to learn more about it, you can do that. Okay. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is CSS3 transitions. So transitions are built into CSS3, and it doesn't require any extra code or plugins, which is nice. You can actually just create settings in your CSS document and change them based on certain things that you want to do. So you can create it allows you to create animations directly in the HTML page without the need for Flash or JavaScript. So this is fairly new. We used to have Flash plugins or JavaScript, but now we have CSS3 transitions. So the website that I like to use as an example of CSS3 transitions is called css3.info. And you can go here and see all the info you need to know about CSS3. There's examples of all of the transitions that are possible. So, for example, let's go to one of these. Let's go to border radius. Okay, so border radius lets us round corners, which we didn't have the option of doing before. So that's a new CSS3 setting. And then under here it says CSS3 transitions. That's specifically what this is talking about. So a transition allows the property to change CSS values that may be defined to occur on hover or focus. So when you hover over an object or when you click on an object, it might change, okay? So like, for example, when I hover over this, it's changing from orange to green, okay? So that's like when you just set the hover to change color, right? But a transition also includes time. So it includes the transition property of what you want to change, duration, timing, and delay. So if you look at example 2 here, it changed from orange to green, but it did it over a period of 5 seconds. And so you see a lot more shades of colors that it's changing to in the meantime. So it's like a little animation that is built into your HTML page. So all of these are animated with different timing functions. You can set delays on them. All of these work in all the browsers. And you don't just have to change colors. You can change a lot of different things. Like for example, this field is changing its width when you click on it. Or if you hover over this box, it's going to roll 360 degrees and increase its size and gain a drop shadow. Okay, so you can see examples of all the code for that here. This one has multiple transitions. So it's moving, it's changing color. And then if I hover off of it, it goes back. These demos are really cool on here, so you can click on View Demo. These are all examples of CSS3 transitions being used. So you can change background color, you can change background position of an image, background position, background size, you can zoom in or out, border radius, and border width. So all I'm doing is hovering over these and it's changing different CSS3 elements. Height, letter spacing, line height. So if you look at all of these little animations, you really do have a lot of different options, and this of course isn't all of them. But this gives you some ideas of what you could do with animations on your websites. It just adds a little bit of fun interactivity to it. Okay, so you'll be learning how to do CSS3 transitions, this one's kind of fun. This one's called blur menu, so the menu's blurry until you hover over a certain thing and it changes its position to the right a little bit as well. Okay, so on project 7, you're going to learn how to do both of those things, and you can go ahead and get started on it.